I still want to talk about Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic nominee to be mayor of New York City, but I want to focus on a little bit of an exchange he has had with President Trump, because President Trump yesterday was asked what would happen if Mamdani stood in the way of ICE arresting undocumented immigrants or apprehending undocumented immigrants in New York City.
UK designating Palestine Action as a terror group, and Germany increasing the suppression of pro-Palestine voices in addition to blocking efforts to stop the EU from sanctioning Israel. How close are we to Palestine liberation? And what more can regular people do? Just keep up the fight. You should never cave to these fucking assholes. Okay? Straight up. Undocumented imbres? What are you talking about? It's much harder to convince others of this genocide than it should be. My grandma doesn't talk about politics at all, but when the news talks about another genocidal action committed by Israel, she started complaining that it was the Palestinians' fault for electing Hamas. I literally showed her some videos of war crimes committed by Israel. She blatantly said it was AI. She's not religious or very conservative. What can I do? Just keep pushing. Keep pushing. Make your presence unavoidable, okay? Make your presence undeniable. Make your presence unavoidable. Make the truth stand out until it is impossible to ignore. That's it. That's the only thing you can do. That is the only thing you can do. Okay, nursing home. Okay, all jokes aside, the only thing you can do when it seems like change is not happening, when it seems like all the powers, all the forces are refusing to reckon with the reality of the democratic wishes of the public leaning in the direction of Palestinian emancipation, the only thing you can do in that process is just keep pushing. No matter how far or no matter how impossible change feels, okay? You're not going to win every single person, but that should not stop you from continuously saying the truth.
I want you to hear what the president said and threatened, and then I want you to hear the response from the Democratic nominee for mayor.
We'll have to arrest him. A lot of people are saying he's here illegally. We're going to look at everything.
This is good. Behave like you're embarrassed by them. It's the most upsetting thing to grandparents. Act disgusted and ashamed of them and make it clear. True. Your older relatives, whether it be your parents or your grandparents, they have different different pressure points. Okay, it sounds kind of stupid, but it is kind of true. Shame is a very effective mechanism here.
Seeing in President Trump's rhetoric is an attempt to focus on who I am, where I'm from, what I look like, how I sound, as opposed to what I'm actually fighting for. Because to do so would be to display the stark contrast in our sincerity and actually delivering for the very working people who've been left behind by our politics.
It just so happens that that interview that you saw with Zohran Mamdani was conducted by Errol Lewis, part of an extensive discussion last night. So, Errol, what do you make of the back and forth here and how each of those two gentlemen are positioning themselves?
Well, John, good morning. As is often the case, what we have is a Republican who wants to beat up on a Democrat and sort of demonize him and use it to rally the Republican base and raise money and do all kinds of things. And frankly, Zohran Mamdani can kind of do the same thing in the opposite direction. Donald Trump is very unpopular in New York City. He lost New York City twice when he ran for president, even though this is his hometown. And Zohran Mamdani is aware of that. And it never hurts a Democrat to bash Donald Trump. And so I think we're going to see a lot of that going back and forth as each tries to exploit the political vulnerabilities of their.
Dude, what a fucking psychotic way to approach this. Dog. Donald Trump, the fucking current president of the United States of America, is saying he's going to deport Zohran Mamdani. That is not an exploitation of anti-Trump sentiment. That's someone who should not be receiving this line of attack at all. Like, what kind of cynical assessment is this, brother? Are you fucking crazy? Donald Trump, the president, who has already started a Gestapo-style reign, a fascist regime of immigration enforcement priorities that he is continuing in spite of tremendous public pressure and resentment, is now saying, I'm going to put the fucking crosshairs on the dude who won the Democratic primary. He's Muslim. He's scary. I'm going to do the same racist shit that I've been doing that is incredibly unpopular to a singular force because he fucking won an election. That's not someone cynically fucking using Trump's statements against him. Holy fuck.
Their adversary.
Margaret, it sounds like what Errol's saying is you have a president who wants to bash a Democratic candidate and a Democratic candidate who wants to be bashed by the president, in a way.
Yeah. And to Errol's point, they do both get something political out of it. There's another trend developing, too, where we're seeing the president talk more and more about this idea of forcing denaturalization, trying to really test the limits of what he can do as the executive in terms of the immigration status or the citizen status of people who were born in other countries, became U.S. citizens, did the things that are so often talked about as playing by the rules. You wait your turn, you study what it means to be an American, you take the citizenship test, you do all the right things, you become a citizen. And increasingly now, he and the Justice Department are talking about increasing denaturalization for naturalized citizens who in some ways are seen to have sort of betrayed U.S. ideals. And right now, this is to some extent rhetoric, but we have actually seen a huge uptick since the beginning of the first Trump administration, since 2017, in the number of cases being discussed for denaturalization. You saw him sort of float this as a threat against Elon Musk, who, of course, is originally from South Africa, when now that he is tangling again with the president. So I'd keep an eye on that also.
That's a really interesting point, the comparison between Elon Musk and Zohran Mamdani and the mutual threats made against each of them there. Errol, just one more point on Mamdani. For all the differences between him and President Trump, there's also some really interesting similarities in the way that they campaign.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, both of them focused on affordability with an almost obsessive focus. And it's really very interesting. We're looking at the numbers. We just are getting preliminary numbers, but there are some Trump Mamdani voters out there. We've identified some areas of New York City where they went for Trump just a few months ago, and now they're voting for Zohran Mamdani. And it's a wake-up call, really, to both parties, that something that will go beyond any other kind of traditional political consideration is that gnawing feeling of not being able to pay your bills on a daily basis. The voters have signaled every way they possibly could that will override almost every other consideration, and politicians ignore that reality at their peril.
Margaret, I want you to weigh in on this, but also I want you to weigh in on this new social media post from President Trump on this huge bill that could get a vote in the House today.
Hakeem Jeffries. Response to Donald Trump's statement: as president of the United States, I'm not going to let this communist lunatic destroy New York. Rest assured, I hold all the levers and have all the cards. I'll save New York City and make it hot and great again, just like I did with the good old USA. Hakeem Jeffries, stop lying about Assemblyman Mamdani. He's neither a communist nor a lunatic. And New York City doesn't need to be saved by a wannabe king. Besides, you're too busy destroying America with your one big ugly bill to do anything else. Yeah, Trump needed to simply call him a dangerous radical, Hamas supporter or something that wants to globalize the Intifada, or an enemy of Israel, for Hakeem Jeffries to not be able to launch any attacks against that. Good
evening. Welcome to Inside City Hall for Tuesday, July 1st, 2025. I'm Errol Lewis. Zohran Mamdani has won the Democratic nomination for mayor. This comes after the city's Board of Elections tabulated the ranked choice voting results earlier today.
Eric Adams declines to comment on Trump's threats against Mamdani when Kelly Mena asks, suggests it's a distraction. They're going to have a mic in my face. Are you going to do this? Are you going to do this? Let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to deliver for New Yorkers. Nice.
Heading into today, State Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani led with 43.5% of the vote after the first round votes were calculated. Former Governor Andrew Cuomo.
The Democrats want to make the idea of Trump deporting Mamdani to be a point of weakness to convince people to not vote for him. That is incredibly cynical, and I hope you're not correct. I didn't even think about it like that, but I don't know. I mean, if they don't actually aggressively push back against the Trump administration for saying this, and simultaneously draw home a larger point about how Trump is using immigrant enforcement as a mechanism to basically rid the country of people he doesn't personally like, whether it be your neighbors who happen to not have the proper clearance, the proper paperwork, but have been authorized to live here and work here, while simultaneously claiming that they're like dangerous criminal threats, or whether it be the person who won the New York mayoral primary on an agenda not dissimilar to Trump's, which was affordability, which Trump seemingly has not solved for New Yorkers or any other American anywhere else. This is the advocacy from the Democratic Party. They should be doing this. And the fact that they're not doing this is a little bit alarming, but considering that there are Democrats or enough powerful Democrats who have actually, said positive things about Mamdani, I don't suspect that to be the case.
Trailed by about 7 points. But then after the votes of all the other candidates were redistributed, Mamdani increased his margin of victory and came out on top with 56% of the vote. Joining me now to talk more about that is the Democratic nominee for mayor, Zohran Mamdani. Congratulations to you and welcome back to the program.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So, look, in late March, which almost seems like ancient history, an Emerson College poll showed you getting the support of only 10% of voters. What happened over that successive 90 days?
We just kept building this campaign with the relentless focus on making the country's most expensive city affordable for the people who make it so special. And ultimately, we built a campaign unlike that which has been seen in our city for many years. We had more than 50,000 volunteers who knocked on more than 1.6 million doors, who made more than 2.1 million phone calls. And we had that coupled with the hunger across the 5 boroughs for a different kind of politics.
He linked up with the Hasanabi broadcast and the Chapo broadcast. Okay. Podcasts have motion. I was wrong. That's what happened.
And that's what we showed over the 8 months. And, it seems like a long way from the 10% you're speaking about, Errol, but it's even longer from where we started in October, where we were at 1% in the polls. And frankly, that's being charitable to ourselves.
Yeah. Well, at what point did you realize that this wasn't just growing, but that it was going to carry you to victory?
We spent so much of these 8 months outside speaking to New Yorkers wherever they were. And there was a moment where more and more people had heard about our vision, and where more and more people were finishing my sentences when I was speaking about the platform of freezing the rent or making buses fast and free. And that was when we started to realize that, in fact, it wasn't even just going to be the same electorate as 2021. This was going to be a new electorate, one that looked more like the city itself. And that had long been a goal of ours, because it is all too easy to say that democracy is only under attack from authoritarianism from the outside, when in fact it's also under attack from a withering faith from the inside as to its ability to not only relate but respond to the most pressing crises in working people's lives. And so fewer and fewer New Yorkers have been participating in that democracy. And we had looked at 2021 and how only 26% of Democrats had turned out at that time, and 74% stayed home. And one of our hopes was to get more New Yorkers to register to vote, to get more Democrats to come out and vote in a primary. And some of the most exciting aspects of these results were the fact that we changed the nature of this electorate. We brought so many more younger voters in. We brought so many zero prime voters, as they're described. And we even saw the voter registrations in the last 10 days of this primary changing from about 3,000 to more than 30,000, and that being indicative of more people seeing themselves in our politics.
So I'm sure some strategists told you along the way that this is one of the hardest things to do, right? On the other hand, it's strategically, I guess, common sense. If you play by the old rules with the old electorate, Zohran Mamdani loses. If you redefine the game and bring in new players, you have a shot at winning.
And I think we were told that by many in the beginning, and I understand where they're coming from, because frankly, the idea of redefining the electorate has been spoken about many a time, and it's very difficult to do. And what made it possible was that we were not doing this alone. There were so many incredible partners in this fight that were speaking directly to the New Yorkers who've lost the most faith in local politics to actually be able to deliver in the crisis in their lives. And ultimately, the most powerful messengers in speaking to New Yorkers are New Yorkers themselves. And we found that so many people came out to vote because of a conversation they had with a canvasser at their door, because of a phone call they received, because of a moment that was far more.
Man, the environment is so fucking ripe, dude. The people are agitated. The people recognize that that change is a necessity. It's actually shocking how the endless faucet, the endless torrent of hate did not cause Zohran Mamdani to fucking lose votes at all.
Donald Trump threatens to withhold federal funds from New York City if Zohran Mamdani, a Democratic socialist and mayoral candidate, does not comply with Trump's expectations should he win. Trump labeled Mamdani as a communist, which Mamdani denied, emphasizing his commitment to raising taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers and addressing income inequality. Mamdani cited inspiration from Martin Luther King Jr., advocating for a fairer distribution of wealth and addressing undertaxation in poorer neighborhoods. Despite criticism from moderate Democrats, Mamdani aims to prioritize working people and restore dignity to his campaign. If you found this video interesting, then make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this, and thanks for watching.